episode begins a day after the events of episode 2, inside of a mansion that overlooks the countryside of Transylvania. Inside of the mansion sat a figure in front of a fireplace with a tumbler of whiskey, his face out of view from the camera. The camera then moves back to reveal the rest of the room. Along the walls were multiple vampire heads stuffed and hung like trophies, their mouths wide open revealing their fangs. As the figure took another sip of his drink, an old butler entered the room. "Sir, our clients from New York have arrived." An intimidating voice replied to the older man. "Excellent. Send them in." Not long after closing the door, Hammerhead and Elizabeth entered the room. "Come, take a seat." As the trio sat down, the figure emerged from his chair, the light from the fireplace revealing his face. "Loxias Crown, at your service." This is Loxias Crown, played by Joseph Gilgan.
"So you're the famous vampire hunter I've heard so much about?"
"Well, I'm one of them. So tell me, Mr. Hammerhead, was it? Why exactly should I take this job offer from you?"
"Tell him, Blondie."
"This isn't a normal vampire." "How so?" "He's not undead." "Impossible. All vampires are undead. At least not daywalkers, anyway." "Not this one, sir. He turned himself into a vampire through science." Fascinating. That aside, what makes him any more dangerous than the regular vampire?"
"This freak has killed warehouses full of my men, taken a blast from a rocket launcher, and almost killed one of the vampire hunters I hired. Does the name Blackout ring a bell?"
Indeed it does. The hunter of the supernatural who claims to be the son of Lilith. I'm familiar with his work. Not exactly impressive when compared to the real experts. So if I were to take the job from you, what exactly would my payment be?
$5 million.
Add another zero, and you'll have a deal.
Are you kidding me?
I'm being generous. I'm being asked to hunt down a target I'm unfamiliar with who's going to pose a challenge. I normally charge much more than that, but I like a challenge. So, Mr. Hammerhead, do we have a deal?
Fine. Blondie, fill him in on everything. We're heading back to New York.
The scene then transitions to nighttime in New York. Morbius was wandering the alleyways, remaining hidden until he arrived at an old Feast of the Nation box containing clothes. After breaking it open and grabbing anything that could fit, the living vampire proceeded to run from the scene and maneuver throughout the city, using the darkness and his speed to remain out of sight until he reached the top of a tall building, then perched on top of a gargoyle and started to look down at the streets below. He saw hundreds of people, each of whom socializing, eating, and just enjoying their lives. Morbius, meanwhile, was restraining himself, trying to not give in to his instincts and treat all those innocent people as an all-you-can-eat cafe.
It's too late for me. There's no going back. Not to that kind of life. But that doesn't mean I can't make things right for others. There has to be a cure for my disease somehow. Out there. Mine may not have worked, but if I can get my research from my computer back and give it to someone else, maybe those poor souls will stand a chance. Morbius stood tall on the gargoyle before falling forward and descending to the ground at a rapid pace before using his gliding abilities to lift himself back up at almost the last second. Him moving smoother than he could ever imagine before flying towards the side of a nearby building and bouncing off of it before making his way to his old home. We then transition to Hammerhead, Elizabeth, and Loxias Crown inside of a warehouse, surrounded by multiple wooden crates.
Mind telling me what's in these things?
Weapons, mostly. It's like you and your associate said. He's fast, durable, and most importantly, dangerous. I intend on using everything I have at my disposal to hunt, restrain, and kill the beast. Now then, before I begin with my hunt, is there anything we can use as bait? Don't get me wrong, blood will attract any vampire, but it's like you said, he's not like the rest.
Oh yeah, we got bait all right.
From his pocket, Hammerhead pulled out a USB drive.
This was in his little lab of his. He'll definitely want this back.
Wait, you took his research? You do realize how valuable that information is, right?
Calm down, Toots. Once we're done with them, we can sell it and split the proceeds.
You don't understand. Everything on that hard drive is what he and my brother worked so hard for. You can't just sell it or use it as bait.
At ease, Elizabeth. Once I'm done with the freak, you can keep it and use it for whatever your heart desires.
Excellent. If we're done with this whining, I'd like to get this hunt started.
Excellent. Do you know of anywhere where I can set up my instruments?
Yeah, I know just the place.
We then transition to Morbius landing on top of a building opposite from the abandoned church he had previously resided in. The living vampire could see multiple guards surrounding the building.
Just what I needed. More magia. Screw it, haven't eaten yet anyway.
The last thing one of the Magia goons saw was a black and red blur slam against one of his allies. The sound of his neck breaking being all he could hear before the blur charged towards him. The moment it made contact, his eyesight had all but vanished thanks to the Morbius plunging his claws into his eye sockets. Blood pouring out onto the sidewalk before they took their final breath and fell to the ground. The hell was that noise? Before any of Hammerhead's men could arrive, Morbius quickly made his way up the church's wall and climbed through the broken stained glass window and into the rundown building. While simultaneously hiding in the shadows, our protagonist slowly makes his way down to the basement, only to find it completely ransacked.
No!
Morbius began to look through the remains of his lab, hoping to find what he was looking for, only to come up empty.
No! The USB! They took it! Those maniacs! Those monsters!
Morbius began to grow angrier and angrier, unaware of the changes that were taking place. His eyes began to glow brighter. His face became more contorted and bat-like as his bones began to stretch, reshape themselves as his arms began to become one with the wing-like appendages from growing from his back.
No!
It came down from here! The group of Magia goons stormed into the basement, only to be greeted by what looked like a large humanoid bat with glowing red eyes that was wearing tattered clothing.
Open fire!
Every single one of the criminals began shooting at the beast, their bullets doing nothing but annoying the creature. With no hesitation, the transformed Morbius threw himself forward, biting the head off of one of the men who attempted to kill him before using his large hand to crush another's skull like a piece of fruit, before bursting through the basement ceiling and onto the floor above in the hall of the church. As if appearing out of nowhere, a harpoon-like object burst out from the darkness and pierced through Morbius' leg, impaling it to the ground. The process would then repeat another 3 more times, killing all 4 Morbius' limbs into the floor before a metallic net shrouded him, making it impossible for him to move, only being able to look forward, seeing 2 figures approaching. This is the monster I've heard so much about, and here I thought you'd be a challenge. You are a strange creature, aren't you?
If you're done with the theatrics, hurry up and kill the freak.
No, I don't think I will.
Huh? We had a deal.
Calm yourself, Mr. Hammerhead. Before I kill the beast, I'd like to see how this creature ticks. Have your men load him up and take him to this address. Do you hear that, monster? You and I are going to have fun. That sound was all that the transformed vampire could make before being dragged away into the night.